Good evening. I'd like to welcome each of you to Gwinnett County Public Library Meet the Expert with our personal County Tax Commissioner, Richard Steele. Richard has served as the Gwinnett County Tax Commissioner since 2011, and he joined the Tax Commissioner's Office in 2005 and has held progressively responsible positions, including Tag Office Manager, Property Tax Director, and Chief Deputy. Richard earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Georgia and is a graduate of Leadership Gwinnett. He is the immediate past president of the Tax Commissioners Technology Development Council of Georgia and serves on the Legislative Committee of the Georgia Association of Tax Officials. He's also a member and past president of the Rotary Club of Lawrenceville. Please welcome Richard Steele.
Thank you all, and thank you to the libraries for having me out tonight. This is a great opportunity, and thank you all for coming out tonight. We've got a presentation here that's going to kind of cover the gamut of the issues that we handle in my office. We'll talk about some motor vehicle issues, property tax. We're going to get into homestead exemptions, what happens when you sell a house, when you buy a house, and pretty much anything you want to get into. Please stop me at any point in time if you've got any questions. I'll certainly be glad to take questions at the end, and hopefully we'll get any kind of questions that you've got answered. And if I can't answer them tonight, and there's this whole idea of property taxes, motor vehicle taxes are very varied and complex, and if you stump me, I will get you an answer, but hopefully you don't get to stump me tonight. So who we are. The Tax Commissioner's Office aims to be a leader in public service. That's what we do. We want to make sure that all of the, everything that we do is geared toward excellent customer service. And when I say customer service, I'm not talking about customer service in relation to government agencies. I'm talking about customer service in general. We want to be the Chick-fil-A of government offices, and not just the Chick-fil-A of government offices. We want to be as good as they are in what they do. We exert to assist customers, and we're conservative stewards of public resources. And we also have an ethical and open work environment. These are the things that we live by every single day. Basically, what happens in the Tax Commissioner's Office is we bill and collect taxes, and that's pretty much it. My office is not responsible for the values that are placed on properties for taxation purposes. That comes from the Board of Assessors. That board is appointed by the members of the Board of Commissioners. My office does not set the millage rates that are used to calculate those taxes. That's set by the Board of Commissioners, by your school board, by your cities, CIDs. My office doesn't have anything to do with that. My office doesn't levy special assessments such as stormwater fees or garbage collection fees, speed hump, street lights. All of those are county assessments. We basically send the bill. Everybody feeds us those numbers. We make the calculations and we send the bill out. In addition to that, we administer homestead exemptions. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but that's a huge benefit for Gwinnett County taxpayers. And as tax commissioner, we serve as an agent for the state of Georgia in the titling and registration of motor vehicles here. So that's all your titles, all your tags. So all of the tag offices in Gwinnett County fall under the authority of my office. What we do is hugely important because, first of all, property taxes fund 84% of the Gwinnett County General Fund, and that's where most of your county services are funded from. That's my office, the sheriff, the jail, the courts. And that means that the work that my office does is a huge player in making sure that county services are adequately funded for the citizens. We've got 330,000 property tax parcels. We collect up $1.3 billion a year. Perfection is our standard, and that's not only in property tax, but especially in motor vehicle. There's a lot of people who have this idea that when they go into a tag office and they deal with one of our associates at the window, that person is merely a cashier. You're going up to a window and you're checking out, and that's not at all the situation. It's very far from that. When you come in and you need to do a title or you need to get a vehicle registered, the person sitting behind that window needs to be an expert in the laws regarding the taxation and titling of motor vehicles. They've got to know a lot of stuff. It's not simply a, give me your money and I'm going to hand you an item. They've got to be able to guide you through that process. They've got to make sure that what you're doing is legal, that when you walk out that door, you're not going to have a problem. So perfection in what we do is our standard, and that's what we look for in our employees. It's a hard standard to keep because we hire human beings and there's always going to be human errors. But if we don't hit perfection, mistakes that we can make can be costly. Somebody makes a keying error, somebody messes up a tag number, they could end up with an unfortunate situation with a law enforcement officer on the side of the road. What we do is important. And again, the people that we have sitting in the tag offices are not simply cashiers. When you walk up to them, you should be able to expect to get expert information and advice from them. That's what they're trained to do, and that's what they do on a daily basis. So let's talk about some new things that have come up in the office here lately. We have moved, along with the rest of the world, hopefully, with more online services. As far as online tag services, you can go online, you can renew your tag, you can cancel your tag. Does everybody know when you need to cancel a tag?
Yeah, when you get rid of the car.
When you get rid of the car. Or if you're just not going to drive it for a while. We'll talk about the importance of that here in a little bit, but if you ever need to cancel your insurance on your vehicle, if you're not going to drive it, if you've gotten rid of it, you can go online and you can cancel the registration of that tag. You can also get a duplicate registration if you've lost yours and want to replace it. If somebody has run into some insurance issues and they've got a fine that's been levied by the Department of Revenue, they can pay that online. You can go online and find out if a special prestige plate, a customized plate is available. If there's a certain letter combination that you would be interested in having on your vehicle, you can go on and find out if that's something that you can actually get. As far as property tax services, you can go online, you can view your bill, you can actually pay your property taxes, and now you can actually go on our website and schedule your property tax payment. You can go in, enter your information, and say, pay it on this date. And on that date, our system will go in and grab that information and pay it for you. And you don't have to worry about remembering to send in a check or anything like that. We'll actually send you your tax bill by email if you want it that way. There's a sign up for that, and rather than send you a paper bill, we will send you the bill by email. And you can apply for your homestead exemption. We've got it set up so that you can fill out your application for your homestead exemption. If there are special documents that are required for special exemptions, you can actually upload those documents to our website and send them to us electronically without having to mail them in, without having to bring them into the office. This year, just earlier this month, we started a chat feature on our website. Now you can go on to GwinnettTaxCommissioner.com. Over to the right side, you'll find the little chat button. You can click on that and decide, tell us whether it's a motor vehicle issue, whether it's a property tax issue, and somebody in our communications center will chat with you online. You don't have to call, you don't have to email. They'll answer your questions right then and there. All of these things that I just talked about, you can do it from our website, GwinnettTaxCommissioner.com. Any questions so far? All right. So some new things that we're seeing is we've introduced tag renewal kiosks in Gwinnett County. We've got 6 of those now. I'll show you where they are here in just a minute. But you can get your decal in 2 minutes. You insert your license, the scanner will read the barcode on the license. It'll pull up your vehicles. You select which vehicle you want to renew, run your card, it'll print your decal. You walk away with your decal right then and there. There are some convenient fees. Those convenient fees are associated with the state's vendor who actually owns those kiosks. That's not money that actually comes to Gwinnett County. They own those kiosks, they put them out there, they want some money for people using those, and so that's a fee that gets passed on to the users. But you can use any kiosk in Gwinnett County or any kiosk that you find anywhere in the state of Georgia. I have signed a cooperation agreement with this vendor that allows Gwinnett County residents to use any kiosk anywhere in any county. So on a regular basis, we've got anywhere between 85 and 100 people who actually renew their tags in DeKalb County every year. There's a Kroger over there that's got one of these machines, and they're using that one. We've got several counties around this area where people are actually renewing their tags because they work over there, it's more convenient for them. We've even got people who every once in a while will renew their tag in Richmond County, that's Augusta. So apparently we've got some people over there who are working and they're renewing their tags. They don't have to get all the way back over here to Gwinnett County to make that happen. That said, anybody in any of those other counties can use the kiosks here, but they don't pay the same fees that Gwinnett County residents do. We are actually absorbing some fees for Gwinnett County residents, but residents from other counties are paying the full usage fees for those kiosks. Only for regular renewals. So if somebody's got vehicles that are registered to a business, if there's something that requires a special tag, for instance, some people have a firefighter tag that requires special documentation from the fire department every year. If it's that situation, you're not going to be able to use the kiosk. But if it's a straightforward renewal and nothing else is required, you'll be able to do that there at the kiosk. And again, walk away with your tag. We've got one kiosk at the North Gwinnett Tag Office, and we've set that up so that it's in the vestibule of that office and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So after hours, on holidays, on weekends, you can walk in there. And we have a lot of people who will go up there on a Saturday and Sundays when it's closed. I've seen the reports where people are renewing at 11:30 at night. It's a very convenient location there. Number two is a kiosk at the Kroger on Lawrenceville-Swanee Road between Lawrenceville and Swanee. We have one at the Lawrenceville Tag Office. That's open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. Number four, we have a Kroger at Decula. That's the Kroger there at Decula Road and Fence Road. And that's open 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. The same Kroger in Duluth, which is off of Steve Reynolds Boulevard, and then the Kroger down on Stone Mountain. That's Rockbridge Road. 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., that's almost 24 hours. So we've got the ability to renew tags all kind of hours, all kind of days, all year long. So I want to talk just a little bit about your tax bill, what it looks like, what you should understand about it, and then we'll move on to some other things. This is the top of the tax bill. I just want to point out that if you ever need to give us a call, up here in the very top left corner, you're going to find your parcel ID. If you ever call and you've got a question about property taxes, they're going to ask you for a parcel ID. They can find it other ways, but if you've got that parcel ID handy, they're going to be able to pull up exactly the parcel that we need to talk about. The owner of record here is going to be whoever owned that property on January 1st. And we're going to talk about that magic date of January 1st here in just a little while as far as who's responsible for the taxes. Here you're going to find the land value, building value, and total value. And these are the values that are determined by the Board of Assessors. Every April, the Board of Assessors is going to send every property owner a notice of assessment. That is their notice to you of what they have determined to be the taxable value of your property. If you do not agree with the value that they've got in that notice of assessment, you have got 45 days to file an appeal with the Board of Assessors. That 45 days is from the day that they mailed that notice. So when you get it out of your mailbox, the clock is already running. So it's very, very important when you get that to open it up, to look at what they've got in there. If you disagree with it, if it's too high, you need to appeal. If it's too low, you need to appeal. They actually have some people who appeal it because they feel it's too low. Whatever you want to do, you've got to file that appeal, because if you wait longer than 45 days, your appeal rights are gone for that year. And legally, there's nothing that the assessors can actually do if you try to do anything after 45 days. And I say that because by the time you get this bill in August and you see that number right there, you call my office. First of all, there's nothing my office can do about it anyway, because we don't have any authority over the values, but it's far too late for the assessors to do anything about it as well. So it's very important for you to deal with this in April and early May. Don't wait until August when you get this bill, because when you get that bill, that number is what it is if you didn't file an appeal. There's the values again. Here we list, if you've got a homestead exemption, what the dollar value of those exemptions are. And then down here you will see each of the different taxes that apply to that particular property. Some of these may apply, some of them may not be applied to a property, depending on whether it's in unincorporated Gwinnett or whether it's within a city. This would be for a property that's in an unincorporated Gwinnett that would pay all of these, and the school and school bond. If you live in a city that's got its own police department, you're not going to pay for county police. You're not going to pay for development or code enforcement. But you'll see across here, we've got the assessed value for each one. We take off your value offset exemption, which I'll talk about, any homestead exemptions. That leaves you with a total taxable value. We multiply it by the millage rate, and we break down the taxes for each one of those to give you your total amount of county taxes. We do the same thing with school taxes. State doesn't have a millage rate anymore. If you did appeal your taxable value, we are actually going to send you a bill, and you can't see it here. There's a watermark across the tax bill that says it's a temporary bill. If you've appealed your value and it's not been settled by the time we send out the tax bills, I'm required to send you a tax bill based on 85% of the assessor's value. So if they said it's $100,000, I got to send you a tax bill with a value of $85,000, and you've got to pay that temporary bill. And then later on, once it is settled, if it's higher, I've got to send you an additional bill. If it's lower, I've got to send you a refund check. But a lot of people are under the impression that if their properties are under appeal, they don't have to pay anything until it has been settled, and that's not the case. The law requires that this temporary bill go out and that temporary bill be paid by the due date, or the same penalty and interest apply to that bill as to any other bill. And then, once it's settled, we do a reconciliation and either send an additional bill or send out a refund check. Any questions about the tax bill? All right, let's talk about the homestead exemptions. There are actually 14 different types of homestead exemptions in Gwinnett County. This is not all 14, but these are some of the most popular. Some of them are just the regular homestead. That's what most people qualify for in Gwinnett County. But we've got some special exemptions. And did everybody get a chance to pick up the brochure that was back on the table? You'll see each one of these broken down. Each one of these have got different exemption amounts, different eligibility requirements. It just depends on the particular exemptions. One of the most popular, of course, is the senior school exemptions. We've referred to that as the L5A. The senior school exemption is for people who are 65 and older. There is an income requirement. That's up to $97,264. Once we take into account the Social Security maximum deduction, once we take into account any kind of pension deductions, you can have an income as high as $97,264 and still apply for this. We've started putting that information out there because a lot of people thought that they made too much money for this exemption. They were disqualifying themselves before they ever gave us a call or ever asked us to look at their tax documents. We do require that we see the tax documents. We usually go by line 15 on the Georgia income tax form. If you qualify for this exemption, it exempts you from 100% of the school taxes and school bond taxes on the house and up to 1 acre of land. So if you've got a house in a neighborhood on a regular piece of property, you're not paying any school taxes. If you've got a house sitting on 2 acres of land, you will not pay taxes on the house. You won't pay taxes on 1 acre of land. You will pay taxes on that remaining 1 acre. So a lot of people have questioned us about why they're still seeing school taxes on that property. And it's anything over 1 acre, they're paying school taxes on that remainder. One thing I would say about any of these age-related exemptions is that it's vitally important for you to apply for them as soon as you're eligible. That's why I go out and I speak to senior groups. We send out letters to people that, when we have them in our database that shows that they're approaching the age of eligibility, we send them information out, because the last thing you want to do, and I've had this happen, is for people to get to the age of 75 and come to me and say, you know what, I just found out that I was supposed to have the senior school exemption when I turned 65. Please refund the last 10 years worth of school taxes. There's not a thing in the world I can do, because one of the first requirements of being eligible for that exemption is that you made application for it. If you never applied, you were never eligible. There's nothing I can do to refund that money to you. So it's very important to apply on time, and I'll talk about some of these other requirements here in a minute. But if you're approaching that age, if you know somebody else that's approaching that age, they need to apply as soon as they can, because I cannot make it retroactive. And think about how much you would pay in school taxes over that period of time when you actually would not have been legally required to pay it. To be eligible for homestead exemptions, you've got to own and occupy the property as of January 1st. It's actually tied to the property and not necessarily to the individual, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you own a property on January 1st, you are legally responsible for the taxes for that property for that entire year. For that reason, if you have a homestead on January 1st, that homestead stays with that property for that year, even if you sell it. So now that's important for a few reasons. Because if you sell your home and move into another one, your homestead doesn't follow you. It's going to stay with that property. The home that you move into may or may not have a homestead exemption. It depends on whether the previous owner had a homestead exemption that you can benefit from. But if they didn't have an exemption, or if it's a new build, you're not going to have a homestead exemption on that new property, which means that you're going to have to apply for your own exemption by April 1st of the next year. If you buy a property and the previous owner had an exemption, when you get the tax bill that first year, you're going to see the exemption on that tax bill, but that's not your exemption. Come January 1st, that exemption is going to drop off. You too have to apply for your own exemption by April 1st of the next year. And that's important also because if you buy a house and you're paying your taxes into an escrow fund with a mortgage company, and you buy a house and the previous owner had a homestead exemption that you don't qualify for. For instance, you buy a house and the previous owner had a senior school exemption, but you don't qualify for the senior school exemption, and you won't qualify for the senior school exemption. When you get that tax bill, it's not going to have any school taxes on it. But what happens next year? Those taxes are coming back. You're going to see those school taxes, which means in that situation, that first tax bill you see is going to be significantly lower than the tax bill you get the next year. That's important to keep in mind, because when you buy a house and your finance people are sitting down and they're putting together how much you need to pay in your mortgage payment every year, if they are estimating your taxes based on that current year property tax bill, and they do it, your escrow account's going to be fine that first year, but when they get around to paying the taxes that next year, when it jumps up because the school taxes showed back up, your escrow account's going to be short, and probably short by a lot. And they're going to want you to make up the difference, make up the shortage for that year, and they're going to want you to go ahead and start putting extra payments in so that you're not short the next year. You don't need to end up in that situation. If you know that you're going to be in that kind of situation, call us. We can provide information to you to provide to your mortgage company to say, hey, this is what the situation is going to be for this property the next tax year. And they can help set up, what your mortgage payments need to be. In fact, I don't know if it's industry-wide or whether it's just some companies, but I know that for a fact, there are some mortgage companies that don't even look at their escrow accounts until July of every year. And so if you don't call to their attention the fact that there's been a shortage, and it takes them until July of the next year to find out that there was a shortage, you were short that year. By the time they find out about it the next July, it's far too late into the year for you not to be short that year, and they're going to want you to not be short the next year. And you could end up seeing your mortgage payments go up to a point where they're making you make up for 3 years worth of shortage in a 12-month period of time. So that's something that you really need to keep in mind. There's only one exemption allowed. If you own more than one property anywhere, whether it's in Gwinnett County, whether it's in the state, whether it's in one other state, you can have one exemption. And every exemption requires an application. Nothing is granted automatically. And that goes back to what I was talking about, the senior school exemption. We don't just automatically go in and give you a senior school exemption or any other exemption when you turn 62 or when you turn 65. You actually have to make that application. And on that application, you're providing us with all the information that tells us that you're eligible. At the bottom of that application, you're signing that you're swearing or that all that information is correct. We have to have that application, and that's why I said a while ago, that's the first thing that you actually have to do in order to be granted a homestead exemption. Once you're granted that exemption, there is no need to reapply. It carries over. The burden falls on the property owner to notify us if there's any change in eligibility. If there's any change in income or in ownership, you have to notify my office that you're no longer eligible for that exemption. April 1st is the deadline for all applications. So in order to be eligible for that tax year, we absolutely have to have April 1st. That's a hard and fast date that is set in the law. If somebody comes in with an application on April 2nd and said, I had a car accident the day before, I absolutely would sympathize with them, but there's legally nothing I can do in the world to help them. So it's vitally important that everybody gets that application in by April 1st. You can apply year-round. You can apply in the middle of the summer for the next year. We'll accept the application. It won't go into effect until the next tax year, but at least you'll have it in, and we'll have met this deadline. Oh, I was okay with it. All right, so let's get into a little more information about property taxes. If you sell your house, can somebody still be held liable for the taxes for that year?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I covered that a couple of times. Taxes accrue in full on January 1st, which is kind of funny because nobody knows on January 1st exactly what your taxes are going to be for that year. But under the Georgia law, if you own that property on January 1st, you are responsible for the full amount of taxes for that property for that year, even if you sell it. And that's been the law for a long time. There's an exception to that law that was put in about 2007, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But if you owned it on January 1st, you are responsible for the taxes. When the tax bills go out, I'm required to send the tax bill to both the owner as of January 1st and the new owner. A lot of people have said in the past when I've talked to them, hey, you need to look at the information that we sent out with the tax bill. And they said, well, I don't get a tax bill, it goes to my mortgage company. Has anybody heard that or thought that? I don't send any tax bills to any mortgage company at all. Law requires me that I mail it to you. Now, your mortgage company, if you have one, has access to the tax bill information in an electronic file that we provide to them. And they go through and they figure out which properties they're servicing, and then they figure out what bills they need to pay. The actual paper bill never, ever, ever goes to the mortgage company. It always goes to the property owner. If taxes become delinquent, the January 1st owner is named on the tax lien. A little example about how that's important for everybody to be aware of. I had a lady probably 5 or 6 years ago now who called me up, and she was confused as to why we had filed a tax lien against her. She had sold a house the year before. When she sold the house, she worked everything out with her buyer. They didn't use a real estate agent. They didn't use any kind of closing attorneys. They just figured everything out between themselves. They figured out how much her share of the taxes were going to be. She paid that over to him or deducted it from the selling price or whatever she did. And when the tax bills came out, he was supposed to pay the taxes on that house. When the tax bills came out, she got one because I was required to send her one. He was sent one as well. When she got hers, she threw it away. She told me. So I sold it. He's supposed to be paying this. I don't have to worry about that. A couple of months later, when she got the first delinquent bill, she threw that one away too. It's not my problem. I sold that house. I don't have to worry about this anymore. This is his problem and not mine. When she got the notice that said if this bill is not paid in 30 days, we're going to file a tax lien, she threw that one away too. In fact, I think I remember her telling me that she never even opened them. She just tossed them. But after that 30 days had passed, we filed a tax lien that had her name on it and it had the property on it. And she didn't find out about it until sometime after. She was doing a refi or she was getting a loan of some kind, and that's when the lien turned up. When she got to digging around as to why her buyer had never paid the taxes, she found out that he'd passed away. And I guess, family or estate, or there was none, or they just hadn't gotten around to paying the taxes. But she ended up having, in order to get the lien cleared up and continue with whatever business she was trying to do, she had to pay her share of the taxes, which she'd already forked over. I don't know if she ever got that money back. She had to pay the buyer's share of the taxes. She had to pay all the penalty and interest that had accrued up to that point, and had to deal with the fact that she had a lien on her record. Because once she paid, we marked it canceled, but unfortunately some of the credit bureaus don't like the fact that the lien was there in the first place. So that's how messy it can get. And if she had actually opened the tax bill and looked at some of the information we have on the back, including the exception that we're going to talk about, and just given us a call, we could have saved her a lot of problem. I couldn't have gotten her money back from the buyer, but we could have saved her from having the penalty and interest and having the lien filed. Which brings me to another point, that being, my office doesn't send out junk mail. If you get a piece of mail from my office, there is absolutely a reason you got it. We did not send it out willy-nilly. And if you don't understand the reason why you got it, you need to give us a call, send us an email, go online and chat, and find out why we sent it to you. Please, please, please don't ignore it, because this kind of situation can happen. So the exception. You can get out of that situation if you sell your property, if you bring to my office proof that the property was transferred. Most of the time we're already going to have that, but if it's a recent transfer, we may not. And proof that the tax liability was transferred to the buyer. Now that's kind of tricky. What do we need to have from you to prove that the tax liability was actually transferred? A lot of people will bring us this. This is the settlement statement. This is, a lot of you have already seen this. This is just what the buyer and the seller agree to pay between one another, but it doesn't actually show who's actually responsible for the taxes. It might show how the taxes are prorated. It doesn't show who's actually responsible for paying it. We also get contracts that have language such as they agree to adjust for any additional or revised tax bill. Well, that doesn't definitively transfer it from one person to the other. It still says that they're going to work it out between themselves. This says basically the same thing. unpaid taxes not accounted for are the responsibility of the seller and the buyer to prorate. They're going to still work it out between themselves. Buyer and seller agree to adjust amongst themselves. Any reference to see the sales contract, we can accept that because it's got to include all this acceptable language. What we're looking for when you bring in this information in the contract is something along these lines. It doesn't have to be verbatim, it's just got to be something to this effect. Seller assigns the liability for the payment of property taxes. The purchaser accepts such assignment, and purchaser agrees to pay in full by the current year due date. That makes it clear that the person who bought this house is going to be the one paying the taxes. Or the payment of all outstanding taxes and assessments not paid at settlement are assumed by the purchaser. Language like this gets the January 1st owner out of it completely. And if we are provided with this kind of information, if the taxes go delinquent, then the law directs me to file a lien against the person who owned the property at the time they went delinquent and not the January 1 owner. All of that information has to be submitted within 90 days of the tax due date. So if they were due October 15th, 2019, we could accept this up through January 13th, 2020. Again, that 90 days is set in law. That's because it says 90 days, it means 90 days, not 90 business days. It's not rounded off to just 3 months. It includes weekends, it includes holidays. If somebody came in January 14th, 2020 with that information, I could not legally accept it. So that's an important date to keep in mind as well. All right, let's talk about motor vehicles. If you sell your car, can you inadvertently incur penalties? Anybody have any idea about that?
I'm sure you can.
There's always a way, right? Always a way. We talked about this a little before. If you ever need to cancel your registration, do it before you, or if you ever need to cancel your insurance, cancel your registration first. If you're not going to be driving it, if you've sold it, if it's just going to be stored somewhere and you don't want to carry insurance on it, call us and cancel your registration. Now understand that when you cancel your registration, that's not blowing it away. It's kind of like an on and off switch for your registration. We can turn it on, we can turn it off. If you call us and cancel it, we're going to turn it off. Do that, because if you do that before you cancel your insurance, the state of Georgia will not think that you're out there driving a vehicle that's not insured. Because if you just cancel your insurance, but the registration stays valid, they don't know that. They just assume that you're out there driving around and that you don't have valid insurance. And they're going to send you a letter that says you are fine. So if you need to cancel your insurance, again, whether you're going to store it, whether you're going to sell it, just send us an email, give us a call, we can cancel your registration. If you're storing it and then you want to put it back on the road, call us, we'll flip the switch on again. And then you're good. Send us an email to tag@gwinnettcounty.com and we can do it as simply as that. Any questions about that?
At what point when you sell your vehicle do you cancel your insurance registration? The day of?
Say you traded it in this afternoon or something like that. It really kind of depends on when you contact your insurance company. You know, if you call them up and say, take it off, you know, as of tomorrow or whenever, give us a call first and we'll cancel that registration. You've actually got a 10-day window in there. You're only going to accrue a fine from the state if there's 10 consecutive days of non-coverage. You got a little bit of a window in there, but a lot of people don't know to ever even cancel the registration. But I would absolutely give us a call first and then give your insurance agent a call and go ahead and get that canceled.
So if you sell a car and the owner will call and register the car, will automatically cancel the previous owner?
A good question. If you sold a car today, you sign the title over to them, and tomorrow they take it into the tag office, and we process a new title for that person, that actually is going to override that previous title record, and actually the previous owner is not going to have to worry about that. Usually it doesn't happen as quickly as that. It can, especially if you're dealing with a dealership. But I mean, if you sold it today, they took the title in tomorrow and we processed the title, it's going to override all that previous owner's information anyway, and that's not going to be an issue. Trick question. If you don't receive a property tax bill, you're still responsible to pay it on time. The actual answer is probably yes, but it depends. I am actually required to send you a bill, first-class mail. If I failed to do that and you didn't get it for that reason, you still need to pay, but we're not going to charge you any penalty and interest. We'll give you 60 days from the time that we actually get you a bill. Sometimes there are issues that we can run into with sometimes the Postal Service. Unfortunately, it's very easy to call in and say, hey, I never got a tax bill. But one particular year, we had several people from the same zip code who called in and said, we didn't get a tax bill. And so at that point, we said, you know, maybe there's something that happened there. You know, maybe somebody did something or something happened with that mail. It really kind of depends on the situation. If we feel like it's really not the fault of the property owner that they didn't pay, we'll work on penalties and interest with them. So, but the point being is that everybody who owns a property should know that they should be paying taxes every year, and if they don't get a tax bill and they know it's about that time, they really should be giving us a call to ask us about that bill. All right, I've gone on for a while, so I'd love to answer whatever kind of questions y'all may have. Yes, sir.
So when you sell a vehicle, in years past, transacted someone didn't pay taxes. Nowadays, I know you've got to pay tax. Who's sales tax? Who's responsible for collecting it and who they pay it to? When say I've got a used vehicle, I sell it. What's supposed to happen?
If you sell a vehicle that the taxes haven't been paid on, say for instance, you've got one sitting there since 2010. That's back when the vehicle was under annual ad valorem. Taxes were accruing every year up until March 1st of 2013. You decide you sell it. When they bring it in, we're going to say 2010, 11, 12 taxes are due. A lot of time, and we ran into this a lot when we were all under annual ad valorem. They're going to be like, well, I didn't owe those taxes. And we're going to say, we absolutely understand, but you've got to also understand that there's a lien on this vehicle for those taxes, and you got to pay them, or the person who actually owed these taxes when they owned the vehicle has got to pay them. But if there are back taxes owed on it, whoever pays them really doesn't matter to us, but they have to be paid before we can do anything.
What did you say about 2013?
March 1st of 2013 is when title ad valorem tax took effect. Any vehicle that was titled on or after March 1st of 2013 was subject to that one-time title tax paid at the time that it was titled, rather than that annual birthday tax.
I have a question about home seat exception. So I applied last year, and when I look at the application has been approved for 2019 tax year. How can I figure out basically what's the new tax fee that I have to pay? Because on this doesn't say anything.
So you applied for 2019, or you submitted it in 2019?
Yes, I submitted it in 2019, and I don't remember getting any letter.
You just got that notification on the website, and you're asking how you know what it's going to be next year?
Yes,
As far as how much your taxes are going to be?
yes.
That's kind of a tricky question, and that's something that we won't know until about summer of next year, because the tax digest has to be approved, which is the approval of all the property values in the county, and then all of the various governing authorities have to adopt a millage rate. So what your actual taxes will be next year, I don't know.
So if I got, application has been approved for the 2019 tax year, basically it's not a confirmation that the bill is going to be decreased or increased. It's just, what does it mean approved?
It means that you're actually going to receive the benefits of that. So if you've got like a standard exemption, you're going to get $10,000 off of the county taxes and $7,000 off of recreation, $4,000 off of the school. But that's that's deducted from the actual value that the assessor set for your property next year.
Okay.
And what that is, I won't know until they actually determine that and after all the appeal period has gone by and everything else.
Okay, so it's going to be reflected in 2021 bill?
2020. I mean, if you sent,
This year, right?
did you send it in 2019 or was it for 2019?
I think I sent it in before, so it was, I sent it on March 28, 2019.
Did you own the property January 1st of last year?
Yeah, I own it for 5 years.
Okay, so it should have been reflected on your tax bill for 2019. That section of the bill that showed your exemptions, there would have been a dollar amount associated with that exemption.
Thank you. So as long as we live in this house, we don't have to apply again?
Do not have to apply again. As long as you still live there and still meet all the other eligibility requirements, you're fine.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk about property tax and the exemptions. Is it possible to get multiple exemptions? You showed a laundry list. I think you said there were 16 of them in total. Is it possible to get more than one of those exemptions if it's a husband and a wife, or two people who own the property? One perhaps, is a surviving spouse of somebody who was injured or killed in the line of duty, in the military.
There are exemptions.
And a 65, can they compound, or are they?
The law states you can have one exemption. What we try to do is figure out what the best one is for your bottom line. And we try to guide people toward that. We actually have had situations where they've come to us and said, no, I want that exemption. We'll give them that exemption, but it wasn't necessarily the best deal. So.
Okay, so even if they qualified for multiples, they only get one, and they need to come to you to figure out which one's the best.
That's right.
Okay.
But you can have the homestead and one, is that right?
Just the one. Now, the only thing you get in addition to the homestead exemption is the value offset exemption, and you will see that in the booklet as well. The Gwinnett County value offset exemption is just for Gwinnett County. And what that does is that when you buy a property, it sets a baseline value for your taxes. And so if over the next 5 years your value goes up $20,000, Gwinnett County will give you a $20,000 exemption to offset that increase. What that means is that if the millage rate never changed, your taxes would never go up. Now that only applies to Gwinnett County taxes. It does not apply to school taxes or to city taxes or any other kind of tax. And it's just Gwinnett County. Other counties have their own version of it, but this is, so anytime you're granted a regular homestead exemption, you get the value offset exemption at the same time, but that's the only other one.
And the date of that exemption, was that the 99 exemption?
Yeah, I believe it was 1999 when that went into effect.
On the emissions break, there's no financial limit, like you can, as long as you follow those three?
Right. If you're 65 years or older, the vehicle is 10 model years or older, and you drive it less than 5,000 miles a year, you don't have to. We can complete a waiver for you not to have that emissions test. I think the idea being that if it's not traveling any more than that, it's not really having an impact on the air quality.
And is there one more that's for seniors for trash collection? Is there anything?
That is through the county solid waste, but there is a form you can fill out with them, I believe, yes. If you're 65 or older, there is a discount, I believe, of 25%. But that's handled through them, and then they just pass to us who gets charged what. So. Yes, sir.
So I presume that if someone gets a small airplane, that there's a ad valorem tax on that also?
Yes, there's personal property taxes that are assessed to airplanes, and
Would it be based on what the sales price of the airplane was, or?
how the assessors handle that with the initial assessment, I don't know, but it's going to be somehow based on the value of that plane, just like all other taxes. They may base the value on the sale price like they do with residential properties. Honestly, I don't know how they handle aircraft, but it's possible that they may do that. And then I don't know if planes depreciate or what happens, or if they, but yes.
Every hour, every engine hour, every flight hour. So who would I talk to perhaps with that question?
On the Gwinnett County website, if you go to the tax assessor's page, there's a number for their personal property section. Airplanes would fall under that division, and they should be able to answer some questions that you may have about aircraft.
Okay.
Aircraft, boats, heavy-duty equipment, business inventory and equipment, that all falls under personal property, which we bill as well.
Just curious, I don't have one, but on boats, are they based on where the property owner or the owner of the boat is located versus where the boat is docked?
Right now, it's based on where the boat is. Now, they've tried to introduce some laws over the past few years, and they may very well accomplish it at some point that changes that. But because they want to kind of go to a title ad valorem tax for boats instead of the way that they're taxed right now. Can I answer any other questions at all? Yes, sir.
Let's say when you're 56, you pay the homestead, you apply for the homestead exemption, and you get it. When you turn 65, would you be able to apply for the senior exemption?
Yes, if you met the income exemptions, you could apply, and you've got to be 65 as of the tax year. So on January 1st, you've got to be 65. If you turn 65 January 2nd, you've got to wait till the next year. You've got to be 65 on January 1st, but as soon as you're 65 on January 1st, then you could submit another application with all the tax documents that we'd have to have and
So you
get
can
the
apply
additional
for more
exemption.
than one exemption then?
I'm sorry?
You cannot, I heard you say earlier, if I'm not mistaken, that you can only apply for one exemption.
At a time. If you had just the standard exemption when you were 56 and then you turned 65 and applied for the senior school exemption, we would give you that and take the other one off. Now, it's still a much better deal than the standard exemption. In fact, you get everything that you have in the standard exemption plus some extra exemptions, including 100% exemption from the school taxes.
And did you say the income for the senior school exemption was line 15 of the Georgia tax return?
That's what we typically look at. If we need more information, we might ask for the IRS return. If somebody doesn't have to file income taxes, we might ask for statements from Social Security or bank statements or something that would establish what their actual income is. But typically, if it's just run-of-the-mill, we can look at line 15 with the Georgia tax return and get everything that we need.
And that figure was $97,264?
264.
Okay. Well, there, okay. Now, I've heard of someone who had some property or a vehicle, and I asked them what they're paying on their ad valorem tax, and they said, well, the county hadn't caught up with them yet. What happens when the county catches up with them?
What kind, when you say ad valorem tax, you mean
Pardon?
when you say
An aircraft?
on an aircraft? Well, first of all, it's probably going to be up to the assessors because aircraft are supposed to be taxed based on where they're primarily located. And so if somebody has one here at the airport most of the year, it's supposed to be taxed in Gwinnett County. If an aircraft just kind of arrived in Gwinnett County and has been here for a while, the assessors may not have caught up with them yet. But if they were to catch up with them and they were able to determine how long that aircraft had been in Gwinnett County and that it had been there all that time, they absolutely can go back and retroactively assess taxes for that aircraft.
And will there be a fine also?
Yes, there would be a late filing fee for not filing a personal property tax return, the late filing, and then we would issue a tax bill based on their assessment, and then obviously if it's not paid, then we would go from there. But yeah, I wouldn't count on the assessors never catching up with you. It may take them a year or two, but it's not a risk I would want to take with an airplane. But then they're awfully mobile as well, so we've dealt with that kind of thing before. So, well, it's here, no, it's here, no, it's here. So,
I have one more.
sure.
Do you have hard and fast rules regarding estates and probate, or do you handle it case by case? Like if there's, due taxes, but there's like an insolvent estate, or there's an order that you have to pay in certain cases?
Where we get involved with probate is typically when a surviving spouse is issued 12-month support. That's a very old law where when a spouse passes away, and because it's old, it usually applied to the husband dying and leaving the wife with a house and no income to support it. But now a surviving spouse can apply to the probate court for 12-month support, which means that if granted, the taxes for that next year would be waived. The issue that a lot of people run into is that when somebody passes away, a lot of times they will go ahead and have everything probated and changed over to the name of the surviving spouse. 12-month support can only be provided when the property is still in the estate. Unfortunately, the probate court's not in a position to be able to provide legal information to people who walk into their door, so they won't tell them, don't do this right now, wait. But that's the trouble a lot of people run into. Can I answer any other questions at all? Am I getting the hook?
No,
Oh,
we have
okay.
plenty of time.
All right. Well, if you think of anything else later, you've got our contact information. Please give us a call, email us, chat with us. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you've got. So, and I appreciate all of you coming out. It's good to see you. So thank you.
And we appreciate you coming out and speaking with us tonight and helping us learn about our taxes. And we hope to have you back another time then.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Anytime.
you. Good night.